we start believing that the movie that we're watching is real. It's like if you go to the movies and you're watching a movie, and all of a sudden you find yourself sitting in your chair trying to answer the question for someone, or telling them not to go in that door, or putting on the brakes for the car that's driving too fast. We get so easily caught up in our external environment. And in the process of that, we lose touch with what's really going on the inside, this inner wisdom and this inner knowing. And we live there generation after generation after generation. And the byproduct of that is we disconnect from the truth that is running through us as an ever-flowing stream of universal intelligence. The way our body's energy system is designed is to constantly be receiving an ongoing flow of the universal mind, the universal wisdom. And if we're aligned and connected and receiving that, we're translating it through the filtering system of our body, and then we're expressing it and decoding it, or assigning images and thoughts and ideas and dreams to the energies that we are perceiving. And what has happened over time is we have gotten so involved in what has already been created and trying to learn how to navigate what someone else is creating, that we put all of our attention on that, and we build the neurocircuitry to be externally oriented. And so when it comes to knowing and our own wisdom and trusting our gut and following our heart and knowing our true path, we're disconnected from it because we haven't been paying attention. So when we focus on our inner world and start breathing in a way that allows the enhancement of our inner world becoming important and significant to us, these little packets of energy gather in there. And as they gather, our subconscious and our sensory nervous system can start to perceive a sense of self that it could never perceive before, because all of our energy was being externalized and thrown onto the outer world, onto the people and the circumstances and the happenings and our story and our history and our fear of the future. And all of that drives the energy outwardly. So when we start to bring it inwardly, healing happens because we're gathering the potency of our energy system in a way, which happens to be the healer, by the way. We're gathering and concentrating it. And now it's flowing in a concentrated manner, and healing starts to happen. Because when the subconscious can perceive a sense of self in there, it relaxes. The real you is invisible. The real us is invisible. And it's so amazing to think about that, because, you know, we have this physical body and we have this mind that we're used to operating from in a certain way. And these types of circumstances are the life that we've been living. But that is not the truth of who we are. The truth of who we are is the spirit behind the eyes, the soulful, essential self. The essence itself is who and what we are. So we are the spirit that has a mind and has a body. We've created a mind and we created a body. And most people think that they are the mind body and that they have a spirit or a soul that they try to nurture every once in a while or listen to. And that's why we live in so much pain, is that we're sitting in the wrong seat. We think we are the mind. We're attached and identified as the mind, and that we have this soul or this spirit that we, try to take care of or nurture every once in a while. It's good for the soul, or I try to listen to spirit. And when people are saying, I listen to spirit, it tells me they are identified as the mind trying to listen to spirit. And that's the problem. The reason they are in pain is because they are identified as the mind.
Hallo Herz, schön, dass du eingeschaltet hast. Ich bin Nadine Gerhardt und dieser Podcast ist mein absolutes Herzensprojekt, um dich zu inspirieren auf deinem ganz individuellen Weg zu mehr Fülle, Liebe und Lebensfreude. Einen wunderschönen Montag wünsche ich dir und freue mich, dass du heute wieder dabei bist. Du hast ja schon den Beginn gehört und ich glaube, da sind schon ein paar Hammer-Aussagen dabei von Dr. Sue Morter. Sie ist internationale Rednerin. Sie hat einen Master in bioenergetischer Medizin und gilt als Visionärin für das Quantenfeld. Wir sind noch immer bei dem Thema feinstoffliche Energie und ja, es könnte keine bessere dafür geben als Dr. Sue Morter. Deswegen machen wir heute einen Ausflug nach Amerika und ja, wir sprechen viel über das Thema Heilung und über ja, unsere innere Welt und über unsere äußere Welt. Aber ich möchte gar nicht so viel erzählen. Hör es dir einfach an. Es ist bis zum letzten Viertelchen mega, mega interessant. Wir werden auch zum Schluss Übungen machen. Und damit kannst du natürlich auch einsteigen, wenn du bitte kein Auto fährst, sondern wenn du für dich eine stille Minute hast. Und was ich dir hier auch noch empfehlen kann, falls du den Podcast jetzt anhörst über Spotify oder iTunes beispielsweise, empfehle ich dir sehr, auf YouTube reinzuklicken, denn Dr. Sue hat ganz viele Beispiele auf Bildern gezeigt und die nochmal ein tieferes Verständnis geben. Deswegen empfehle ich dir sehr, schau bei mir auf YouTube Nadine Gerhardt einfach vorbei und klick dich rein. Es ist ein ganz tolles, spannendes Interview und ich wünsche dir jetzt ganz viel Freude damit. Dr. Sue, welcome to HEITER BIS SONNIG. That's the German podcast here. And I'm very happy that you share with us your wisdom. And I would like to know, how did you get into your job and what fulfills you in it?
So I came upon this very innocently. I was born into a family where my father was a pioneer in energy medicine. Energy medicine is the only healthcare I've ever had. I've never gone to the doctor and taken an antibiotic or gotten a prescription for a medication in order to heal something. I've always only ever been working with moving the energy in the body and identifying ways that the energy is blocked and getting it flowing again so that my body could remain healthy and robust and so forth. In addition to that, I also have healed a scoliosis in my body just through natural means, healed migraine headaches, and I also have been able to treat broken bones and things along those lines of fractures that without traditional casting and going the route that we typically are trained to do by means of energy medicine. So I grew up with it. I also then explored meditation, and in the midst of meditation had a transcendental experience that was an awakening, multidimensional awakening in consciousness. And so which changed my life, even above and beyond what I grew up knowing. So I've had the wonderful opportunity of bridging together the aspects of wisdom and true knowing that comes with an exalted state of consciousness, and melding that together with what I grew up with, understanding how energy flows in the body, and being trained as a doctor, infusing all of that information together really allows me to be in a position of translating how people can get outcomes, how people can work with natural health care and natural energy flows to change their lives on a health level and on a mental and emotional and spiritual level as well. So I stumbled into it and had great awakenings that have brought me to this place now of being a global teacher and working with hundreds of thousands of people around the world. So it's been quite a ride.
Wonderful. And what fulfills you most in this work?
What? I'm sorry, what?
What fulfills you most?
What fulfills me?
Yes.
The most about it? I think that really the most fulfilling component of everything that I just shared is that I'm able to activate people to awaken to their true power to heal, the true power that they possess to create the lives that they want and desire, and to acknowledge that what they desire is meant to be and sharing with them methodologies to fulfill their own dreams and their desires. So the most fulfilling thing for me is to share what I've recognized as the key components to truly living the life that we are meant to be living. And then, sharing that with other people. There's just nothing better than that, right? Nothing better than lighting someone up when they're struggling and they don't understand, they don't have the perspective, and we can just flip a few switches and all of a sudden they have an aha and a revelation, and it changes their life. So it doesn't get any better than that.
That's true. Absolutely. How did you think healing works?
So healing happens in the body when we remove the interference that is keeping the natural flow of vital force from flowing. When we stop and look at it, we are meant to be automatically healing. If we cut ourselves, it heals. If we break a bone, it knows how to heal as long as we have things aligned properly. And if we strain or sprain something or have organ system issues and diagnoses and complications with symptomatology, our body is designed to be healing those things automatically as well. And if we're not healing, there's a reason. So it's really about identifying what we are doing to get in the way of our own natural healing process and removing that interference. And ultimately, when someone begins to awaken to the true power that not that they possess, but that what they're made of, when they awaken to what they're truly made of, healing begins to happen as a byproduct of revealing our true magnificence. So I don't look to things, to circumstances and cases with people from the perspective of finding what's wrong and fixing it. I'm rather going in and drawing out of an individual the true healer from within that they may just not be activating or living as or aware of. And as we turn on those lights for people, healing happens as a byproduct of someone truly stepping in to their authentic selves and expressing it and exchanging and living life from a place that is as if life was meant to be for them, that it was in constant support of them. And when we start to learn that perspective and can walk and talk from that place, healing happens just kind of out of the corner of your eye automatically. So ironically, the contradiction to that is when someone starts to look for what is wrong, they keep creating more of what is wrong. And if they're looking for problems to fix, they might find them and fix them, but all they're really doing is getting good at finding problems to fix and fixing them. And so they will always have to have problems to fix and fixing them to have an idea of their empowerment and improving their life. And what I'm really encouraging people to do instead is to look to what you would choose to be, how you would choose to share, what you would choose to reveal, and get busy learning how to do that better. Because then at the end of the day, you're a better creator, you're a better innovator, and you're a better healer rather than a better problem fixer. Because if we identify as a really good problem fixer, like I said, we will always be subconsciously creating problems to fix so that we have a very good feeling about ourselves and feel that sense of victory. And there's a bigger sense of victory that is waiting for us if we just allow a little bit of an altered perspective on this process, this project of life.
Yeah. You grew up with this wisdom. Why do you think we lost all this wisdom?
So this has been happening since the beginning of time, since the beginning of recorded history. Some of the most ancient texts reveal that the number one issue for humanity is that humanity gets too caught up in what has already been created. We get caught up in the exterior world. We start believing that the movie that we're watching is real. It's like if you go to the movies and you're watching a movie, and all of a sudden you find yourself sitting in your chair trying to answer the question for someone, or telling them not to go in that door, or putting on the brakes for the car that's driving too fast. We get so easily caught up in our external environment. And in the process of that, we lose touch with what's really going on the inside, this inner wisdom and this inner knowing. And we live there generation after generation after generation. And the byproduct of that is we disconnect from the truth that is running through us as an ever flowing stream of universal intelligence. The way our body's energy system is designed is to constantly be receiving an ongoing flow of the universal mind, the universal wisdom. And if we're aligned and connected and receiving that, we're translating it through the filtering system of our body, and then we're expressing it and decoding it or assigning images and thoughts and ideas and dreams to the energies that we are perceiving. And what has happened over time is we have gotten so involved in what has already been created and trying to learn how to navigate what someone else is creating that we put all of our attention on that, and we build the neurocircuitry to be externally oriented. And so when it comes to knowing and our own wisdom and trusting our gut and following our heart and knowing our true path, we're disconnected from it because we haven't been paying attention. So the way that it works is that the moment that we start paying attention to our inner realm again, and we learn how to do that, which is what I teach people how to do, the moment that we do that, we start driving energy toward our internal core automatically. It automatically follows our attention. When we put our attention on the outer world, our energy follows that. When we put our attention on our inner world on a regular basis, our energy follows that. And these tiny little packages of energy that are the bridge between consciousness and physical matter, that are just these formless packs of energy called photons, they follow our attention, our focused mind. They are attracted and drawn together just by what we're paying attention to in a focused manner. So when we focus on our inner world and start breathing in a way that allows the enhancement of our inner world becoming important and significant to us, these little packets of energy gather in there. And as they gather, our subconscious and our sensory nervous system can start to perceive a sense of self that it could never perceive before, because all of our energy was being externalized and thrown onto the outer world, onto the people and the circumstances and the happenings and our story and our history and our fear of the future. And all of that drives the energy outwardly. So when we start to bring it inwardly, healing happens because we're gathering the potency of our energy system in a way, which happens to be the healer, by the way. We're gathering and concentrating it. And now it's flowing in a concentrated manner, and healing starts to happen. Because when the subconscious can perceive a sense of self in there, it relaxes. It's like, oh, there I am. Oh, I don't have to figure out, and I don't have to ask you who I am, or if I'm okay, or if I'm acceptable, or if I'm lovable. I know that I am. I can feel it. And when I can feel it, no one can question it. No matter what you say or do, if I can feel a sense of self, I'm good. So if you're projecting your angst on me, it's yours. It's not mine. I don't take it on because I know something better. I can feel it. So that's what we're doing, is building this felt sense of self so that the system can relax. And when the system relaxes, it automatically moves into healing. When it's not relaxed, it automatically moves into fight or flight, to be guarded and protecting in case something horrible happens. I'll be ready. But when we know who we are, we know that, hey, whatever happens, I'll be ready for it when it happens. I'm not really worried about that. So I'm going to go on living my life instead of constantly protecting myself. And a byproduct of that is that people heal. And a byproduct of that is we remember and we get reconnected with this true universal intelligence that we are, it is our birthright. It's what we're made for. And we reestablish that connection again. It's just that humanity got carried away, doing the right thing and trying to do the right thing, but we got outside of ourselves in the process of doing so.
Yes.
So all my answers won't be that long, but that one just kind of sets the stage.
It's like pearls of wisdom. It's so wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Absolutely.
How important is breath work at times of Corona?
Well, at all times, before Corona, during Corona, and after Corona, breath work is very important because this very energy that I'm speaking about, the way to move it is with our breath, because the energy, the invisible energy body that I'm referring to is what we call spirit, and spirit in the body shows up like breath in the body. So for instance, if we stop breathing for 10 minutes, we leave the body. We're not here in this body anymore. So breath in the body is a significant way that we maintain our presence here in this physical realm, in this physical body, in this physical world. So when we learn how to breathe in specific ways, we can learn to breathe right through the aspects of ourselves that we haven't been breathing through. And the significance of that is that if we're not breathing in all of the parts of our system, then we don't get to utilize and benefit from all of the gifts that these various parts of our system bring in contribution to our wholeness. So we know about, let me just show you an image here that I think will help us in a very large way. Okay, the energy runs through the body by descending through the body and hits the earth, and it gets stepped down to what I refer to as alpha frequency, or for human consumption. And then it rises up through the system, rises out the top of the head, cycles around the outside, comes back in at the tip of the spine, and is constantly replenishing itself. It's constantly doing this over and over and over again. It's constantly dropping more in, constantly rising up, and constantly recycling. And each of these little rainbow colors represent the chakra system, which represents levels of consciousness, parts of your wholeness. So for instance, this one has to do with your feeling like this is your gig and that you belong, more than belong. It's not that you're here to fit in, you're here to create, and you're here as the answer. The next one up is your ability to generate deep wisdom from being here. And this whole system filters right into that second chakra area, and it cultivates as wisdom. The next one up is your personal power and your identity as a cosmic individual rather than just being a separate human being, and so on and so on. So each of these levels of consciousness contribute to the quality of this energy. And here's how most people are operating. Most people are operating where this energy drops down, it hits the earth, it rises up, and there are parts of my belongingness that I am not in touch with. There are parts of my wisdom that I deny. There are parts of my personal power, for instance, that I'm not aware of or I'm not claiming for myself, and so on, all the way up. And so this rising energy that is rising here and creating this rising energy has to go around where we don't have circuitry in place to receive the benefits of the qualities of consciousness that are associated with each of these chakra layers. And so this distorted pathway creates a wobble, which creates a distortion in the energy field. So you see this distortion, and now this person is in here looking out through that energy field into a distorted reality. They see life very differently. They perceive themselves very differently than what is true, what is accurate. So when we are working toward healing and wholeness and applying our conscious attention to such things as improving our lives, when we learn to breathe through this pathway, when we learn to breathe through this instead of going around it, everything changes. So the breath work is how we clean house. We clean this up and return this to functioning like this, like we were originally designed to be functioning. Mm-hmm. So learning how to breathe and how to anchor ourselves in the body in such a way that the breath is routed through these areas instead of around them is highly significant if we ever want to truly animate and activate all of the parts of who and what we are and live the life that we're capable of living. We have to empower ourselves. So my short answer would be breath work is huge. Okay. It's kind of everything. All right.
Wonderful. Yes. I see it like you.
Wonderful.
You have developed your own technique, the energy codes. And what are the energy codes, and how can we shift our energetic inheritance through bioenergetics and the energy codes?
Sure. So bioenergetics just means the energy of the body. The image I was just showing is bioenergetics. It's showing the energy body flow, the body's energy patterns and how those energies flow. So the energy codes are something that I developed because, let me show you another image here.
Yes,
These
please.
are pretty awesome pictures. Now, about 20 years ago, I had a big awakening in my own consciousness. The door flew open, my third eye opened, and all of a sudden I could see energy fields around people. I could see them as a child, but I shut it down because I realized that nobody else was talking that way and referencing that. So I remember shutting it down so that I just, fit in. And then later in life, I wanted to get that back and it wouldn't come. And then about 20 years ago, I started meditating, and boom, this doorway opened up. And basically this is sort of what happened. This is that same energy field that we were just looking at. And I was operating as this individual, didn't know it, but all of a sudden I lit up right here. I lit up at this higher state of consciousness, and I could see the earth beneath me, and it was about the size of a marble. That's how much distance was between this and, where I really was observing from. I could see 360 degrees around me in a big giant sphere. I could see behind me, above me, below me. Without looking, I could just see it. And every time I took a breath, this beautiful horizon, a pink blanket would rise up on my inhale. And as I would exhale, it would just lower. And on inhale, it would rise. And it was as far as the eye could see in every direction. This is what was happening. And I knew that this brilliant light was becoming love as it was passing through this channel. It was passing through this ray. It was love. And I knew that the degree to which we could allow ourselves to breathe so freely was proportional to the amount of love that we were generating here in this dimension, the love that we then would be experiencing, and that it was actually all up to us. And that it wasn't up to our parents loving us or our siblings loving us or our partners loving us or our friends or society accepting and celebrating us. It wasn't about that at all. It was about bringing the love. It was about having the experience that you're choosing to have. And there's an abundant, infinite supply of light that fuels that love as it passes through this system that we are. So that experience 20 years ago rocked my world. I came down out of that meditation, and I did not know what to think about everything I looked at, because I knew that this world wasn't the whole picture. It was just this movie screen. And it looked as flat as a movie screen because of the multiple dimensions that I was now able to see. And the people and all of it looked like I was looking at a photograph because of the multiple dimensionality and the relativity of being here. It was nothing compared to who we really are. So I had to figure out, how do I return to that state? What am I supposed to do with this information? How do I let it apply to us here? And how do I serve humanity with what this opening has been? And so I devoted the next decade of my life. I didn't know it was going to take that long, but I devoted the next 10 years to my life, turning my life into a living laboratory to figure out how to return to that exalted state of consciousness. And most importantly, how to bring that here and how to allow that to flow out through us and how to teach other people how to do that. So the Energy Codes is a book that I wrote based on coursework that I've been teaching. So here it is in book form, but there is a whole series of seminars that I teach online that are teaching people the information that's in that book and so much more, teaching them how to translate, how to find that higher self version of them, how to translate that into the body, use the body as a filtering mechanism, and allow that to translate this cosmic information that every one of us is made of and is intended to be perceiving, receiving, and acting upon. So I have another picture that I want to show you that has to do with this. So this picture is kind of another version of the same thing, but it seems to be a little more accessible for people to realize that we are pure consciousness, and we are compressing and compressing and compressing that consciousness into physical form. And this is a law of physics, that all physical matter is compressed energy. So our bodies are just compressed energy. And the energy that is compressed, that comprises the body, is this cosmic energy. So this is the truth of who we are. We are pure awareness. We're this misty white substance that is energy that's awake. And we're compressing ourselves into this channel and hitting the earth and rising into this flow of energy that I've been describing since we started talking, right? This whole flow that recycles and recycles, and it's constantly pouring in, and it's constantly hitting the earth and rising up. And it's what makes this body of energies that the physical body is made of. And so when we realize how to work with that energy, we have a tremendous ability to heal. Beyond measure, we can heal. We can transform anything. We can transform complexities in our lives into fluid flowing ease and grace. We can transfer and translate and transform our history, our story that has been painful and that has been, abandoning or abusive or filled with accidents or injuries or whatever the case may be. We can turn that into information that serves us and that empowers us instead of compressing us and having us always have to suffer in order to prevail. It just isn't necessary. The way that we've learned. And so the energy codes is a codified, systematic approach to understanding everything I just said and embodying it and turning it on in someone's life. The energy codes are the how-to principles to wrap our minds around that, to learn how to work with that energy and how to turn it into something that serves us instead of holds us back any longer. So it is a pathway to enlightenment and embodiment, and healing is a byproduct of that. So people work with this work and heal on every level in their lives, in the spiritual, the mental, the emotional, and the physical, all respond when we start utilizing all those energies together in such a way.
When you told me your awakening story, I got goosebumps. And this picture, the first picture here, it's amazing because it shows this. It shows it. It's really amazing.
Yes, it puts it into a perspective, and everyone has that. It's just a matter of, are we aware of it or not? And humanity is awakening, and I think that COVID is really playing an integral role because it's causing us to come inside and to figure out what matters to us and to work with these things as if it's the most important thing, because our lives could be in danger, or the fear that has been up. People are trying to find ways of comforting and stabilizing and being safe and being smart and being strong and being healthy and vital. And these are the ways that we become as healthy and vital as we are supposed to be all the time, when we begin to work with it, with our breath and integrating our chemistries and our thoughts and our emotions in an alchemizing sort of way. Everything changes as we learn to do this.
Oh, yes. And here in our Western world, we have the focus a lot of the mind. So what is the difference between living from the mind versus the essential self?
So this essential self is the pictures that I've been showing you. That misty white substance is the essential self. That's the real self. It's the real you is invisible. The real us is invisible. And it's so amazing to think about that, because, we have this physical body and we have this mind that we're used to operating from in a certain way. And these types of circumstances are the life that we've been living. But that is not the truth of who we are. The truth of who we are is the spirit behind the eyes, the soulful, essential self. The essence itself is who and what we are. So we are the spirit that has a mind and has a body. We've created a mind and we created a body. And most people think that they are the mind body and that they have a spirit or a soul that they try to nurture every once in a while or listen to. And that's why we live in so much pain, is that we're sitting in the wrong seat. We think we are the mind. We're attached and identified as the mind, and that we have this soul or this spirit that we, try to take care of or nurture every once in a while. It's good for the soul. Or I try to listen to spirit. And when people are saying, I listen to spirit, it tells me they are identified as the mind trying to listen to spirit. And that's the problem. The reason they are in pain is because they are identified as the mind. So what I'm teaching people how to do in the energy codes is take this quantum flip and learn how to live as the spirit in a body who has a mind that you're constantly teaching to be on you. You're constantly teaching the mind to serve you instead of control you. And it's quite a ride when people start to turn that inside out. Everything changes, and we are set free, because it is only the mind that suffers. The mind judges, and the mind feels alone, and the mind feels isolated, and the mind feels like it's not enough, and the mind feels like it has to win, and it has competition, and all that stuff is all driven by the mind. It has nothing to do with the truth of who we are. So we should stop saying, I'm afraid. We can say, my mind is afraid, and we'd be seated in a better seat. We could say, my mind is, angry. My mind is frustrated, but don't claim it as you, because you are never upset. The real you is never afraid. The real you is never lacking anything. And so this is the dilemma that we've been living inside of all of our lives. And no wonder we're in so much fear and pain and anxiety when our life rituals and circumstances get taken away. When COVID happened and no one could live the way that they're used to living, people freaked out because they're used to habits and patterns and traditions and regularities. And that's how they have this false sense of safety. And so you take that away, and all of a sudden people are freaking out all around the world. And now they're judging and deciding that you have to do this and don't tell me what to do. And all this is just, it's coming up because that's how we wake up. So, I'm hoping to share enough information with enough people to stabilize that. And we're doing a pretty good job. We're connecting with 95 countries around the world and sharing this information. So it is something that is changing a lot of people's lives, and rightfully so, because what we're speaking about is a deeper truth that has been the focus of all deep consciousness study and meditation techniques since the beginning of time. It's just that conversation has been being overridden by flashier conversations about manifesting and getting the house and the car and the relationship and all of that, which people are so obsessed with. And I'm sharing that if you'll just do this work, those things will take care of themselves. If you'll just do this kind of work that I'm talking about, if you'll just come inside and learn how to anchor yourself in the body and identify as the true essential self versus this mind-based personality, these things will take care of themselves. You will get, the promotion and the better job, and the abundance will flow, and you do heal, and you do get the partnership that you're looking for, and it does unfold. And I'm describing this because it has happened in my life, and it has happened in the lives of thousands of people that I've been working with. And whatever their goals really were, they're finding that they're meeting their goals from an entirely different avenue than they ever thought they were supposed to be pursuing in order to get what they wanted. So, yeah, it's an inside job.
Yes, absolutely. Can illness also be a way of development in your eyes?
Illness is a way of development. It doesn't have to be through illness that we wake up, but illness can serve our awakening. In other words, when we suffer through illness, when we suffer through, the symptoms of COVID, when we suffer through migraine headaches like I used to have, we suffer through pain patterns like I used to have, we start to question, we start to disconnect from our habitual way of living, or we have to, and we start to evaluate, what matters, what am I doing, it's an awakening inquiry that starts through illness oftentimes. I would love for humanity to just start asking those questions before they're ill, because the same questions apply and the same answers will reveal. But illness seems to be a way to get people's attention and to change priorities in an all-encompassing manner, because we have to take 100% of us and have it shift in order to start living the way we were supposed to be living in the first place, and to start healing and to start experiencing our abundance. It has to be with all of us. And so sometimes illness has been required in some people's lives to get all of their attention operating in such a way, but it doesn't have to be that way. If we have devotion, if we have devotion and a prioritization of personal stewardship in a divine sort of way, and honor our true self in a way that it matters more than anything and is regularly in our attention every day, it is enough power to develop our consciousness without having to suffer in order to get that as a top priority. And I find, and I use the word devotion on purpose, because discipline will get it also, but it's very hard for the mind to agree to being disciplined. But the mind will agree to being devoted to something because there's heart energy associated with that. And anytime we can get the heart and the mind connected, the mind is much better off, because the vibrational frequency of the mind is of such a vibration that it serves of the heart. The vibrational frequency of love and of the heart is of such a vibration that it settles the mind instantly when the mind connects with it. It soothes the mind and slows it down and allows it to feel. It allows the mind to feel when the heart is involved. We can experience true compassion and true love and true joy and intimacy and sacredness, and those kinds of energies are significant when it comes to healing and changing our life path. So if we are devoted to something, there's mind and heart in it together. When we are disciplining, we're just like forcing our mind to do, no, every day I'm going to do this exercise, or every day I'm going to do this. And it's like, the mind is like, yeah, whatever, I'll do that for a little while, but I'm really interested in this other thing because it's more joyful. And so it wanders off again, and we have to keep pulling it back, and it wanders off again, and we keep pulling it back. But if you get devotion in the picture, there's heart and meaning. Now the mind will stick around. It's like, oh yeah, let's do more of that. This really matters to me. This is deep and meaningful. And now the mind has something to serve that is bigger than itself. And whenever the mind has something bigger than itself to serve, it's always better off, because the mind alone is a dangerous thing. The mind isolated on its own, oh my gosh, it writes stories and it gets all tangled up in stuff, and it folds over on itself and starts writing stories. And the next thing you know, you're down a road where nobody loves you and nobody cares, and the world is a terrible place and you're not enough. And it's crazy, because the mind alone isn't enough. So if you leave the mind to itself, it's going to write a story about not being enough, because the mind, I have another picture here that I want to show you. Okay, this one's just a simple drawing, but it really puts things in perspective. This line right here that is red, the red line is the line of the mind, and you are all this other stuff. So the mind is just a simple part of you. And we think that this is who we are, but this is who we are. This energy of spirit is who we are. And this is the mind, and this is the emotions, and this is the chemistry body, the etheric body where the chakras start to formulate. And then this is the physical body. And our job is to come all the way to the physical body. But we get hung up right here, and we start living right here just as this alone. And it's not a fun place to be, because, as I said, the mind alone, this is only a portion of us, a small portion of us. And in perspective, if you were to really lay this out in perspective, this blue field is about as big as a football field. And this mind is about as big as a pencil laying on a football field. Okay. So now the mind is powerful beyond belief. It has the ability to shut off the entire football field, but in and of itself, it's no bigger than a pen or pencil laying on an entire vast, amount of energy. So we have to get it in perspective and not let the mind run the show. We have to train it and teach it. Like, you're in service to me. You don't get to control me. You have to be in service to me. You don't get to decide anything about my life. You get to be right here. I get to tell you what we're going to do. And that's how we have to start to work with things a little differently.
Absolutely. Yes. How important is it to get all this wisdom into schools, into the school system?
Well, wouldn't that be glorious? So we do have this work in elementary schools, where we're teaching elementary school children how to do some of the practices that we do that balance the body and to get the body and the mind and the heart all aligned with the breath, melding them all together, with little kids that are, they're like so eager to do this, and they love it, and they do it. They love to do it. And if we could teach our children in mass how to do the practices of the energy codes, or the practices of learning to build the circuitry to take the wobble and the distortion out of the field, we would raise a generation of leaders and healers like we have not yet known. And it would take us, with all of the advantages that we have with the advancements of society, but it would also take us into the wisdom of the indigenous cultures and the peoples who lived in tandem with nature, and they lived in connection with nature and earth and the powers that be. And we would combine those two capacities in such a beautiful way that it will truly be the solution for humanity. And we have generations that are developing, that are much more interested in such things. The young people today are very interested in this. When we start engaging and talking about it, they light up and they know that it's the answer, because they're not so far removed from the heavens of just arriving here. The first decade, we still have a real open doorway, because we haven't been living in the disconnect for decades, 30 and 40 and 50 years and 60 years disconnected is a long time. But when you start to speak to an 8-year-old, they get it. You speak to a 12-year-old, they get it. And so we're very interested in bringing this information to this age range of people, because we know that they're going to have the power to save the planet and the race that's trying to survive on the surface of this planet before we destroy it.
Oh, yes. Many people have heard of countless examples where healing has worked, because very few describe case studies where healing has not worked. And those where healing does not work run the risk of believing that there is something wrong with them. Why do you find that healing is not working, or under what conditions may healing not work, and what can you say such people?
Okay. So when we land here, I describe it as we kind of splat. Mm-hmm. It's like a rough landing, and we splat and we disperse, and all of our attention, as we said earlier, goes to the outer world. Mm-hmm. And in that, we develop a personality way out there on the edge of the splat. We're out there trying to make it work and trying to please people and do the right thing and show up for life and be a good employee or a good employer or a good partner. We're just out there trying on that outer edge. Mm-hmm. And when we get sick from living out there in that outer edge, and we don't self-heal, because the self-healer is here on the inside. And so we're living way out here on this outer perimeter, and we get sick and we go to the doctor and we get a prognosis or a diagnosis, and we get a treatment program assigned, and then they do the treatments. Mm-hmm. And we don't heal. If we don't heal, it's all because none of that had anything to do with activating the true healer on the inside. So there is no surgery, and there is no pill, and there is no process from the outside in that heals us. What causes us to heal is when we activate the healer within the body. Now, sometimes a pill or a surgery or a methodology of therapy of some sort will activate the healer within in an inadvertent way, directly or indirectly. And then healing happens, and we associate it with the surgery or the medication or whatever. But it is actually that the healer within took that up and did something with it that made the healing happen in the person at the end of the day. So when healing doesn't happen from the methodologies that we attempt, it is because the individual is still living out there in the protective personality or the performing personality that they developed along the way. And the modalities just aren't strong enough or potent enough to knock them back inside. And believe me, some chemotherapies and some surgeries and some intense approaches like that are big enough that, boom, they just rock our world and knock us down. And when they knock us down, it lands us in this surrendered place where we activate the healer within. Mm-hmm. So the invitation is surrender, so that you don't have to get sick to have to surrender and get to this healer within. Mm-hmm. So a person who is living out there as a protected personality, they don't know that they are. they're living as this performing personality. We don't know that we are because that's all we've ever done. So it's like the fish that's in water doesn't know it's in water because it's always only ever been in water until you take it out and throw it on the bank. And now it's like, I prefer the water. So they had no choice point before that. So people are waking up to realize they have a choice point. And then it's easier for them to realize, oh, there's a reason that the modality didn't work for me. It's because I wasn't home to receive it. I was living out there on this outer surface layer on the perimeter of who I am. And these modalities can't heal me from there. So it's so important in that moment that the person doesn't conclude this just isn't going to work for me and there's no hope. There's so much hope. But first we have to learn how to come home and live there in this place where these modalities can serve. And we might just find that we don't even need as many of them as we thought we did. Because when we do come home, the natural healing state that is intended to be self-healing all the time is able now to be fueled and to kick in and do what it's here to do. And then we self-heal and we self-regulate and we self-illuminate, and everything changes when that starts to happen. So there is always hope. And when someone starts to feel like there is not hope, I assure you, it is because they're not sitting in the right seat to receive the benefits that life and that modern, medicine can both provide. And it would be my preference that people learn and try to attempt natural self-healing. And there are also, I want to say this, there are also a lot of natural self-healing techniques out there that work for people and don't work for some people. And the reason that they don't work for the people that they don't work for is because of what I just said. They're not at home doing these practices. They're not in their deep core central channel like what we were referencing. They're not living in here. They're living way out here on the surface and beyond. And they're not actually getting to reap the benefits of these natural healing techniques that are available for them because they're trying instead of receiving, instead of accepting and receiving. So let me just ask this quick question to everyone who's watching or listening. If you find it easier to give than to receive, it is possible that you are not landing completely in your deep core, true essential self the way you could be. It needs to be just as easy for you to receive it as it is to give. It needs to be a non-issue. So just like think, oh, wow. So we have to get better at dropping into our deep core self and feeling and owning and knowing who and what we really are. Because when we know that, giving and receiving are equally joyous. And we don't hesitate or resist either of them. And so that's just a little tidbit that we might want to stick in our pocket and check in on regularly, because it's a telltale sign that I'm caught up in this thing that we're talking about here today.
Mm-hmm. And don't you think that also death is a part of life, like also illness is a part of life? Because at the beginning of the podcast, I had a series with two friends of mine, and one, she was very ill, and the theme was conscious dying. She had cancer, and if you see a picture of her, she died 3 years ago, and she if you see a picture of her body was gone. It's crazy that a soul can live in this body, but it was a big experience for us and those who left behind, and that could be also important, that it's not only like a failure. You know what I mean?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So right, we're just passing through this place, right? We are eternal. Science is showing us that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It just is. It can only be reshaped into different vibrations or forms or whatever. But it in and of itself is always present. It's always here. And this is a beautiful realization, because we also know that we are made of energy. So we are eternal. We cannot be created or destroyed. The truth of us, the true essential soulful presence, is eternal. And it compresses itself into a body, and then it leaves the body and moves on. And and goes on to have other experiences. And after I had this initial door opening 20 years ago, since then, I have multiple dimensional experiences in parallel universes or multi-dimensionality, visiting other dimensions all the time. I really traverse them regularly. And I know that when we come in here and we put on this skin suit, that we're here doing certain things for certain reasons, and then we can access and exit anytime and be in other states of consciousness, in other realms always. And we do regularly. We do every time we go to sleep. We are astral traveling and we're in other dimensions. And that's why we have dreams that kind of make sense and they kind of don't make sense. And it's because we're expanding beyond the body. And so, life and what we call death is part of that cycle, but it isn't a death at the way that we've perceived death. There is no such thing. And we have to untangle that misinformation and recognize that we are eternal. We come in, we do what we're here to do, and then we go somewhere else. We go elsewhere. We go. It isn't that we die and our spirit goes on, which was that whole issue was what got me interested in this whole conversation, 23 years ago, which led me to meditation, etc. And it was then that I opened and had these recognitions. So what we know is that I was sitting in a funeral and they said, when Sally died and her spirit went on, it shocked me. I was like, I was 23 years old or 25 or 26 or something like that. And I was like, I don't ever want to die. I don't want to be the one that dies and have some spirit that I don't even know go on to have some other life. I'm not interested. So I want to trade places. I want to be the one that goes on. And that started this inquiry in my life that led to meditation, led to this opening, led to this, this whole thing unfolding this way, simply because I got curious about what's really going on here. And now I identify as the spirit, and I am living as a soul in a body that I developed. I built a body and built a mind, and I'm here breathing my way through this life as spirit in a body. And I also have the capacity to go elsewhere, and we all do. But the most important thing is that while we're here, we are here wholly, fully recognizing that we're here for this beautiful reason of living joyously and abundantly and flourishing in this life with everything that we have. And knowing that when it's time for us to move on to our next adventure, that is what happens. And if we do not resist that, it happens with grace. And if we do resist it, it becomes a painful process. And it's all, I think that it is mostly because of a misinterpretation that most people are afraid of that moment in life that we are exiting for the last time, this time around. And people are very afraid of that. And it isn't a big deal. It really isn't. Now we need to process life as if it is precious and rare and valuable beyond our beliefs, because it is. And at the same time, when that time comes to make our transition into another dimension, to not be afraid of it, because it is literally, you open a door, you walk through the door, and you're out of this room and you're in another room. You're in another place. It isn't that you're annihilated and you just disappear and there's nothing. You leave this place and move into another place. And if I could tell the whole world that, I would love to, because we're so afraid. And we're afraid to live because we're afraid to die. And it's just all, none of it is necessary, in that perspective.
Yes. Amazing words.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
Can you please take us through an exercise with the energy codes?
Sure. The energy codes is a way of living. It's a way of learning all sorts of things. But we do have some immediate exercises that we could do so that people could start to feel this. And I'll just take a couple of moments to do this. But I'd like everyone to feel a couple of things. We're going to do 3 things. One, I'd like you to feel the difference between your energy being splatted and dispersed and you giving it away too easily and claiming it back. So that's one. And then I want to give everyone the experience of being able to move that energy with their breath. And then I'm going to give them the experience of learning how to recognize when one of these things is happening and not let it happen anymore, to just carve a pathway straight through it. Okay. So we're going to do all that in just a couple minutes. Okay.
Yes.
So the first thing is, I want you to imagine that someone that pushes your buttons or trips your triggers, triggers you, is walking through a door in the room that you're in. They're walking through a door. They're in the room with you now. And notice this person or this situation is right here, and how your energy goes over there to them, and it rushes off of you, and you feel this flooding of energy off of you and onto them. And you'll notice that it doesn't feel very good in your body when they are here. And now I want you to just secretly claim it back. You just, as if you're grabbing that energy and just bringing it back onto you, onto self. Instead of it being thrown onto this object, this person, bring it back onto subject, you. Just claim it back. And still see them standing there, but consciously and intentionally pull your energy back onto you and claim it. And take a breath in your belly. Breathe in your belly. And when you breathe in your belly, you automatically anchor more of this energy. You anchor more of this energy in your own body. So now you can look at them, but you're intending and insisting and commanding that the energy be here in your own body while you're breathing in your belly, rather than it being dispersed and given away, your power given away to someone. And now that energy is here, the body feels better. It feels better to be in this body when that person is in this room, if my energy stays on me. So that's one. Very important. Stick with it. Do it all the time. Practice it many times with all sorts of things. Okay. The second thing is, I would like people to learn how to breathe up and down this channel specifically, because when we breathe up and down this channel, we start to magnify this energy that we're claiming back for ourselves and put it to good use. Okay. It starts to pierce through all these areas automatically. All right. A little bit at a time. So here's how we do this. You take a breath from above your head and breathe down through the center of your brain, through the center of your throat, through your chest, through your belly, into your belly. And then you're going to exhale down into the earth. Then you're going to breathe from in the earth up through into the belly. And then you're going to exhale right up out through the top of your head, as if there's an opening in the top of your head, because there is energetically. Let's take a breath through the center of the brain, through the throat. Let's do it together, through the chest, all the way down into the belly. Big belly breath. And then exhale, shoot that breath down through the tip of your spine and into the earth. Now let's take a breath from in the earth up into the belly again. Now just squeeze your shoulder blades together and drop them down. Squeeze the shoulder blades together, drop them down, and then roll your eyes up and exhale from your belly up through your chest, through your throat, through the center of your brain, and out the top of your head. Now let's take a breath with your eyes rolled up. Take a breath from above your head, right behind where you feel the tension behind your eyes, where your muscles are working, right through there and right through your throat. And then right where your shoulder blades are squeezed and drop down, feel the tension there. Bring the breath right through that area and right into your belly. Inhale into your belly. Now hold your breath in. Let me describe this. Squeeze the muscles in the pelvic bowl as if you were going to the bathroom and you had to stop the stream instantly. Squeeze those muscles. Squeeze them right now. And then exhale right through those squeezed muscles into the earth. Just exhale. Keep them squeezed. As if you were going to the bathroom, you had to stop the stream instantly. Squeeze those muscles. Keep them squeezed. Now, take a breath up from the earth through those squeezed muscles in the pelvic bowl, in the perineum, and breathe into your belly. Keep them squeezed and breathe into your belly. And now we're going to exhale right up through that pathway at the shoulder blades and the pathway right behind your eyes, and exhale it right up out the top of your head. We're going to do the same thing again. Inhale from above your head, right through the center of your brain, through the behind the eyes, that tension you can feel with your eyes rolling up or rolling down. Breathe right through your throat. Squeeze the blades right there. You're breathing right through that area and right into your belly. You're just charting a course for yourself. That's what we're doing with all these muscle contractions. Now squeeze those muscles in the pelvic bowl again and exhale. Shoot the breath right down through that. That's called Mula Bandha. It's a root lock that anchors your energy in the body. And exhale into the earth. Now inhale up from the earth, right through that Mula Bandha, those squeezed muscles in the belly, or in the pelvic bowl rather. Breathe into your belly. Then you're going to exhale through the belly, up through the squeezed shoulder blades, right up through the throat, through the center of the brain, that tension behind your eyes, and shoot it out the top of your head. Okay. And now let's take a deep breath from overhead, right down through the same, right through the center of the brain, through the throat, through the chest, into the belly. And then exhale right into the earth and open your mouth and just exhale. Okay. So that's a whole lot of words, but all you're doing is breathing up and down through this channel. Okay. Now, and you're anchoring by squeezing some of these muscles, you're anchoring that energy and stabilizing it, and it intensifies it. So learn how to contract those muscles in the pelvic bowl, shoulder blades together, drop them down, roll the eyes, and it gives you these coordinates to stay in the channel, to stay in this central channel, which is where the healer happens. The healer happens right in there. Okay. Now, one last thing. Let's go back to this person who's standing in the room who trips your triggers. Okay. Pushes your buttons. These are your buttons. These are your buttons. This person pushes your buttons because you're trying to learn how to build circuits right through these areas and carve a pathway that allows this to flow like this. So here's what happens. When you look back at this person standing in your room who has got this, whatever they do that bugs you so much. Okay. If you notice in your body where you feel activated when they do what they do you get a lump in your throat or a tightness in your chest or a knot in your stomach or tightness in your spine or your neck or wherever it is, wherever you get accentuated, activated, some concentrated energy, you're getting that because of this gap in the flow. This energy is rising and it's hitting this and it's giving you a knot in your stomach or in your gut, or it's coming over here and hitting this and then trying to run around it. And it's in your stomach, or it's hitting right here and trying to go around it. It hits it, it comes up and hits that and then has to go around it. And when it hits that, you feel it like tension, knot in your stomach and your throat. That's what you're feeling. And so rather than saying, I just have to stay away from this person, I get sick in my stomach every time I'm around them. Instead of doing that, let's lean in. Let's do something about this. Let's use this to our advantage because it's a gift that's waiting for us. So ask yourself, where in my body am I activated every time you come in the room? When I think about you, where am I activated? And I'm going to squeeze that area back. I'm going to let it know that I'm onto it. Now I'm going to use this whole system the way it was built to be used. All right. I'm going to squeeze it back and I'm going to hug it on the inside. And I'm going to do this central channel breathing, because if I do, as I do, I start to carve a pathway right through this by squeezing it and then drawing the breath up and down through it. It starts to dissolve this blockage or this gap. It builds a bridge across the gap. And the next thing you know, you're breathing like this. And the next thing you know, this person doesn't bug you anymore. In fact, you see them and you're delighted because they taught you about a part of you that you were denying, a part of your own personal power that you were not in touch with, and that these actors in this movie that we're projecting onto this movie screen are here to support our awakening and nothing else. That's the only thing that's going on here. It's the only thing that's going on here. And so as we start to embrace what's really going on, we start to become super empowered by everyone that bothers us, by everything, by every obstacle that we have perceived in our lives. We start to turn it into something that is serving us rather than holding us back. So life isn't hard. It's only hard when we don't have the circuitry in place to be present with it. And this is how we build that circuitry, to be present with everything. Because when we are present with life, life is joyous and easy and flowing, and it's delightful and something to inquire about, and it is stimulating, and it is healing and activating to our whole soulful presence. And that's why we came here, to wake up to that, so that when we go somewhere else, we're very good at managing our energy, because we learned how to do that while we were here on Earth. Planet Earth is an obstacle course that is teaching you how to manage your energy, and how you're doing at that is reflected by the joy and the health and the vitality, the flexibility and the freedom that you are experiencing in this life while you're here. So let's take that to heart and recognize that there are things that I could do differently that would allow me to be free and allow me to enjoy this life and to heal. and to participate as a creative leader rather than waiting for somebody to fix it for me. Right. So that's what it's all about.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I have one very last question.
Yes.
If you had the opportunity to wave a magic wand and wish something for the world, what would it be?
For them to know, for the humanity to know its magnificent role in the divine unfoldment of this beautiful heaven earth that we are walking through. It isn't heaven on earth. It is one thing. It's heaven earth right here. And that my magic wand would have everyone awaken to their magnificent role in that great unfoldment, and to know their greatness, to know their beauty. It would be that.
Thank you so, so much. That are so powerful words. And yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you.
It is my joy. When we get to tap the truth, I could talk forever.
Da geht es Dr. Sue ähnlich wie mir, denn sonst würde es diesen Podcast hier nicht geben. Ich rede über all das auch super, super gerne und tausche mich aus. Und ich werde alles von Dr. Sue verlinken, ihre Website, ihr Buch The Energy Codes, beziehungsweise auf Deutsch die Energiecodes, so müssten sie auf Deutsch heißen. Aber ich verlinke es dir in den Shownotes und ja, freue mich jetzt schon auf die nächste Runde. Lass dich überraschen, würde ich mal sagen, denn die Energie geht jetzt woanders hin, ein bisschen, aber hat mit dem heutigen Podcast auf jeden Fall so einiges zu tun. Und ja, ich wünsche dir jetzt einen wundervollen Tag, einen wundervollen Abend, lass es dir gut gehen, trag dich auf Händen. Namaste und Satnam, deine Nadine.